All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show. Still getting used to the new format. The fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the AFC North. I'm going to rank those teams now, so I do have a graphic for that, and I think these rankings are definitely less controversial than the AFC East. So you don't have to worry about me throwing any curveballs at you guys, but these rankings I think are pretty fair. So with the AFC North, this is the best division in football, in my opinion, and I think many people would agree with that. I think all these teams can make the playoffs. Now, it's going to be easier for some, harder for others. But I think you could see all these teams in the playoffs. I think each team can control a playoff spot. But is that going to happen? We'll have to see. But that's my opinion. So at number 4, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said yesterday, just because I have a team, like I had the Dolphins ranked at 3, doesn't mean I think they're going to be bad. I just think it's the other two teams were better or are going to finish with better records. With the Steelers, I just feel like, that I just think the other 3 teams are better. And I think the Steelers are going to be in the thick of it towards the end of the year. And they're going to be trying to get one of those wild card spots. They made changes at quarterback. In the draft, they, addressed the offensive line. And they also did draft a receiver as well, as they had to, because Deontay Johnson they traded. So, it's going to be interesting how Russell Wilson does and whether or not, he still has the job towards the end of the year, and maybe if he's not playing well, they go to Justin Fields and see what they have in Fields. But, yeah, I think the Steelers, I think they could finish around 9 wins. And maybe they did win 10 games last year. But now you got Deshaun Watson's going to be back healthy. And they did split with the Browns last year. They actually lost the game that Deshaun Watson didn't even play in. And then you got Joe Burrow coming back. And the Steelers did sweep the Bengals. That's not going to happen this time around. So it's going to be interesting. But I think for me, the Steelers coming fourth. Again, like I said, I think the other 3 teams are just better, in my opinion. But then we get to number 3, and I got the Browns. And they have some concerns at quarterback as well, because Deshaun Watson is coming off of an injury, and even before that, wasn't playing great. And that, I think, will ultimately hold the Browns back. But do I still think that they could be a playoff team? Well, look at what they did last year. Deshaun Watson gets hurt. You had, DTR starting. You had P.J. Walker. Joe Flacco came in towards the end of the year, and they were able to make the playoffs. Jeff Driscoll started the last game of the regular season. And you also had a lot of injuries, to the offensive line, to your backfield with Nick Chubb going down, and they still made it. So, and when Deshaun Watson got hurt, they were coming off of that big win against the Ravens, that comeback win against the Ravens. So I still think the Browns are going to be a good team, and they got one of the best defensive players in the NFL, like the Steelers do. They got Myles Garrett. Steelers got T.J.Watt, of course. So, the defense is going to be a force once again in 2024. And, if Nick Chubb comes back and is healthy, that adds another dimension to this offense. The Browns also went out and they traded for Jerry Jeudy, and they gave him a contract extension, to go along with Amari Cooper and David Njoku, who had a good year. So the Browns, I think, should be a good team. But I think the other 2 teams, like the Steelers, I think the other 2 teams in the division are better. And I think the Browns and the Steelers are going to be teams that are fighting for wild card spots. But I like the Browns' chances of making the playoffs better than I do the Steelers. Although, 3 of the 4 teams here did make the playoffs last year. So, But yeah, so the Steelers at 4, Browns at 3. Now, this is where it gets really tough for me because I think the Ravens and with the healthy Bengals squad, I think these two teams are neck and neck. However, I'm going to give the Ravens the respect that they deserve, and I'm going to put the Bengals at 2. There is still some concern with Joe Burrow, and I know I haven't touched upon this, but there is some concern with the wrist still, even though he is healthy. I know I didn't touch upon it this week. I'll probably get to it next week because there's no show tomorrow. Just another reminder that there's going to be no show tomorrow and no show Monday. So I'll see. Tuesday is when maybe I'll dive into it, but there's still a little bit of concern there, and also just he has dealt with injuries. He was dealing with the calf injury before he injured his wrist. So, there's still some concern there. But if Joe Burrow comes into the season healthy, the Bengals are going to be one of the best teams. And it's going to be between them and the Ravens. But what I think is, I don't know, I guess unique, is that, yeah, you look at the Browns and the Bengals, right? Joe Burrow struggles in Cleveland. Last year to open the season, Browns-Bengals, Browns dominated that game. Bengals came out flat. Now, you could also look at, Burrow was playing hurt. But even the year before that, I believe, either it was the year before that or for some reason, though, Burrow just has a problem playing in Cleveland. Don't know why, but he has a problem against the Browns. Because I know I think it was when Jacoby, actually, yeah, it might have been the year Jacoby Brissett was the starter, so it was the year before that. Yeah, he just didn't play well in that game either. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, with the healthy Bengals squad, and of course, they still got some things to figure out with a couple of their players, T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson, looking for new contracts. So, but I mean, for the moment, those guys are still on the team, and they're going to be on the team probably this year, and then after this year, we'll see what happens. But, they did draft T. Higgins' replacement, most likely. The Bengals, they also drafted a tackle. So, listen, as long as Joe Burrow is protected and he's healthy, the Bengals are going to be really good. But I'm going to put them at 2. And then at 1, I got the Ravens. Like I said, I'm going to give the Ravens the respect they deserve. Lamar Jackson coming off of an MVP, another MVP. Their defense was pretty good last year as well. And now you add Derrick Henry to the mix. And I know I talked about this with Manny and Emran. That's something I'm really looking forward to, is seeing both of those guys in the same backfield. And I think Derrick Henry is in a great situation with the Ravens. This is a team that loves to run the football. And, he's on the older side. He's now 30, but still got some mileage left on him. And I think this was a solid team to end up on. And I think he should have a big year. And for me, listen, Lamar Jackson, he was injured the last couple of seasons prior to last year. And when he's healthy, you see what the Ravens can do and the team that they can be. Now, they did fall a little bit short last year because, once again, Lamar Jackson did lose to Patrick Mahomes. But when he's healthy, you could, like I said, you see the kind of team the Ravens can be. And they were blowing out some teams, some good teams. They blew out the Lions. And, I mean, look what they did to the Dolphins, too, late in the season. Now, again, I mean, you could look at the Dolphins and they might be a little bit, they were kind of fraudulent, some people would say. But, I mean, that offense. But if you go back to 2022, The previous year, Ravens were up by a lot in that game. The Dolphins came back and beat them. So I kind of thought it was going to be the same thing. We were going to see a shootout, but we didn't. I think the Ravens put up like 50 points on them. But you see when the Ravens are healthy what they can do, what kind of team they can be. And for me, I'm going to put them at 1. But it's very close between them and the Bengals. Because, again, if Joe Burrow is healthy, we're going to see some good battles between these two teams. So just to kind of repeat myself here. So the Steelers I have at 4. Browns at 3. Bengals at 2. Ravens at 1. So that's the rankings there. Let me know what you guys think about the rankings. What would your rankings be? Again, I think these rankings are they are not as controversial as the ones from yesterday with the AFC East. That's probably the most controversial I'm going to get with my rankings. So next time we will do, I think next is going to be the AFC South. So we got 2 more divisions to cover, and then that will be it. But the other thing, too, is I do want to go through each team's schedule as well and just kind of be like, oh, this game could be a win, this could be a loss. Like, I do want to do that as well in the coming weeks. Again, just, because, look, we're halfway through May, but we still got a lot of ground to cover before we get to next season. So I do want to go through each team's schedule. I think next week we'll go through the primetime games. I know we did the holidays, but we'll go through the Sunday night games, Thursday night, Monday night. There's actually, I was going through the Thursday night slate last night, and the Thursday night slate usually is pretty weak, but for the most part, there are some pretty good games there. But now we got to see them play out first. But at least, like, on paper, you got some good matchups. So I want to get into all that next week. And like I said, we'll start going through, teams' individual schedules as well. But yeah, so that's pretty much, again, let me know what you guys think about the AFC North rankings. So we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss Justin Jefferson, the latest on his contract situation. I'll talk about some comments made by head coach Kevin O'Connell regarding his contract situation, and that is what we will do to conclude the show for today. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.